It is Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. I'm Alan Zundell, and this is Political Dharma, bringing you another episode on politics in opposition to the dominance of the two major parties in the United States. I have several stories for you this morning. The first is about the Seattle National Convention of Workers Strike Back, an organization that is planning to launch a new socialist party in the United States in the near future. And the second story has to do with the Green Party announcing the date of its national convention this year. And Utah State Senator has switched parties from the Republican Party to the Forward Party. Also, the Forward Party has announced the results of a survey of its membership and its plans for this year, its priorities for this year. And then a Democratic former congressperson is yet another centrist calling for a new party. And let's see, Angela McCarter, the former chair of the Libertarian Party, of the Libertarian Party's National Committee, has been invited to give a keynote speech to some libertarians out there in the Northeast. And then finally, yet another new organization trying to work for electoral reform in order to help advance the cause of alternative political parties. So let's get started with that Seattle convention. This is Workers Strike Back is an organization that came out of the Socialist Alternative Party in Seattle, who successfully elected Kshama Sawant to city council, and she had a 10-year run in which she accomplished quite a bit. Workers Strike Back held its first national convention in Seattle on the weekend of February 22nd and 23rd to vote on their priorities, their program, and their leadership. Here's some short clips from her speech at that convention.
Our first speaker, it's my honor to introduce former Seattle City Council member and socialist. Kshama Sawant is a founding member of Workers Strike Back and also a member of Revolutionary Workers. She led the fight for the $15 an hour minimum wage that is now over $20 an hour here in Seattle. She has never backed down or taken a backroom deal in her 10 years in office. She only accepted the average wage of a worker that she represented, donating the rest to social movements. And unfortunately, that is an incredibly rare track record. It's the only one I know of. And so it's my honor, to introduce someone who used their elected position to organize working class struggle. And she's going to talk to us about how to fight the rich and what we're here to do today.
I, like many of you, was part of Sanders' movement, and we were correct to be because millions were coming together, but some of us did so with our eyes open. From the beginning, myself and the socialists who are part of Revolutionary Workers today noted the fundamental mistake of funneling people into the Democratic Party. We warned about the dead-end nature of this strategy of a political revolution against the billionaire class from inside a party that is owned lock, stock, and barrel by that same billionaire class. We need a new mass party for the working class and the oppressed. The organizations here like Workers Strike Back, the Green Party, and all of us, we have an important role to play in that process. Some people will ask, shouldn't we be running a lot of candidates for office? We do need to prepare the ground for a mass party of working people. But speaking as a former elected representative of working people myself, my answer to that question will be no, not right now. Not right now is not when we can run lots of candidates for office. Our movement at present is not strong enough to run significant numbers of candidates. Elections are also not the main way that change happens. People with progressive ideas get elected all the time, but without a strong movement behind them, they get absorbed into the system. They capitulate to the enormous pressures from the rich and their politicians. And it might seem ironic to you all that I'm saying this as somebody who has a decade-long track record of having used elected office in the correct way. But I say this because, tragically, that is the only example we can point out in our times of elected office being used in that way. So yes, it can be done. It needs to be done that way. But a sober assessment also is that it hasn't been done otherwise outside Seattle. We need to build a stronger movement now through other campaigns and struggles to to prepare the ground to be able to run candidates independent of the two parties of the billionaires.
The other keynote speakers were best-selling author and speaker Chris Hedges and three-time Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein. According to a report by Willow Reader on the Workers' Strike Back website, over 100 people attended the convention and voted on, among other things, a platform plank calling for a new multiracial working class party that organizes movements and fights unambiguously for our needs. He also reported that some Green Party members felt that they should strike that demand and designate the Green Party as the new party they should be helping to build. There's a lot of discussion around this, but it failed by 71 votes to 9 with 6 abstentions. They say in the report that the demand for a new party has been a core demand, and they believe that it doesn't yet exist. So that's not what the Green Party is to them. He said it would also have potentially thrown open the door for those who simply want to reform the Democratic Party rather than having an independent working class party. And there was a general agreement on the need to clarify that it's a mass party for workers, not just yet another new party. A Green Party member also proposed to add 2 Green Party members to the National Coordinating Committee and asked that the requirements for being on the board be relaxed, as these proposed leader had just signed up for dues on that weekend and neither had participated in monthly meetings. The rules currently call for leaders to have, quote, played an ongoing role, end quote, in building the Workers' Strike Back organization and was committed to it in a more substantive way. A lot of people spoke against this and emphasized the importance of tested leadership after decades of abandoned promises and outright betrayals by, quote, progressive, end quote, Democrats and other left figures. The request to relax the rules for leadership failed. To me, these debates on these particular items show a long-standing weakness of the left in the United States, and this is that there seems to be a tendency for people on the left who are trying to organize something to hold themselves as more radical than other people who want to be involved, and their organizations as more radical. And in this case, I'm talking about the Revolutionary Workers' Party, which Kshama Sawant and other people of Workers' Strike Back are involved in. It's more of a Marxist party. And I guess they don't regard the Green Party as radical enough from what I read in that report. And this often has the result of splitting the left into different factions and different parties and different organizations, and makes it very difficult to organize this kind of a mass movement. So I hope that they can get this together and go forward with it, but we'll see where it goes from here. All right. Turning to the Green Party itself, they did announce their national meeting for this year, which will be held from July 31st to August 3rd, and it's going to be held remotely again, as it has since the era of COVID began. But they'll be planning at this meeting for their biennial national convention next year in 2026, where they will have an in-person convention. Utah State Senator Dan Thatcher left the Republican Party recently in order to join the Forward Party. His term expires at the end of 2026, but since Utah only has a part-time legislature, he's not currently actively involved in the session. They only meet in the legislature from mid-January, I think, to early March. So they just closed their session, and then he announced this switch. But he will be serving next year from January to March. So he may be one of the very few, or even the only, I'm not sure, alternative party elected official in a state legislature actively acting in his role. In 2016, Thatcher did endorse Utah independent presidential candidate, Evan McMullen, rather than Donald Trump, the Republican candidate. And Thatcher has been at odds with the Republican Party in his state and the direction that the Republican Party has been taking overall under the influence of Trump. Meanwhile, the Ford Party released the results of a membership survey that it did and outlined their plans for this coming year. What they found was that members strongly supported electoral reforms such as ranked choice voting, nonpartisan primaries, and independent redistricting commissions. They also favored issue advocacy and local organizing, but wanted the party to more clearly define itself. In response, the party leadership will prioritize building state and local chapters and voter outreach, as well as running candidates only in races where they looks like that candidate has a good chance of winning. And yet another Democrat with some national profile has decided that it's time for a third, more centrist party outside of both the major parties. This time it is Dean Phillips, the Minnesota congressperson who came out early against renominating Joe Biden. And then when nobody else stepped forward, he stepped forward to challenge Biden for the nomination. And of course, he lost to Biden, who then dropped out later on. But Phillips he didn't run for re-election, so he's no longer holding office. But he says that we do need a new centrist party in which a candidate can be supported by this party without having to chase money all the time and can pay more attention to the duties of their office and meeting with constituents and things like that. He does want to, in this way, try to get money out of politics. And here's one of the quotes he had from this article in the from WCCO that was published recently. It says, I believe we will need a third party, a legitimate, principled, thoughtful, center-right, center-left, problem-solving, common-sense third party. I'm not sure how he thinks this would be much different from the No Labels Party, which was looking for something similar. So it seems like a lot of Democrats and even Republicans think that what independents are looking for is some kind of centrist party, like No Labels or even Forward Party could be considered to be a centrist party, unless it defines itself differently in the coming year. And I would look forward to seeing what that could look like. But this idea is that independents just want to get rid of partisanship. I'm not sure the direction they want is a centrist party. I think what they want are independent candidates that are more responsive to voters' concerns about the economy. There is where the type of socialist party being advanced by the Workers' Strike Back is more targeting working people who feel like their prospects are really drying up and they've been hurting for 50 years and they're not sure if either party or a centrist party, anything that smacks of that is going to really shake things up enough to help them as they become disillusioned with Donald Trump, which I think is likely. They're probably going to go back to the Democrats for the time being, but hopefully looking for something even more different. Should be an interesting race in 2026 and then in 2028 with the next presidential race. What else do we have here? Let's see. Dean Phillips. Oh, yeah. Libertarian Party. Haven't talked much about them today. They continue to make the news in ways. At least this is their former chair of the National Committee, Angela McArdle, who has been surrounded by controversy for her strategies and handling of the party's direction in this last presidential year. She's been invited to be the keynote speaker to the New Hampshire Liberty Forum, which is an event held since 2007 has been organized by the Free State Project, which tried to create a libertarian community up there in New Hampshire, and is now going to debate, I think, in this coming meeting as far as this article in the Independent Political reports. This is by Jordan Willow Evans, who often writes for that publication. They're going to debate whether it's better to try to build these independent type libertarian communities or to get involved in electoral politics and follow the direction of Angela McArdle, who tried to find a different way of proceeding with a third party and making alliances with politicians outside the Libertarian Party like Donald Trump. And finally, there is yet another organization in the space of electoral reform. This is Expanding Democracy, which its launching was announced recently. Some of the things it's going to work on are ranked choice voting, proportional representation, trying to create more space for alternative parties and independent candidates, as well as a national popular vote for president rather than continuing on with the electoral college as a way to elect presidents. Now, behind this is the principal mover seems to be Rob Ritchie, who recently stepped down as the executive director, I guess, of the Fair Vote, the organization that's been around for over about 40 years and has been promoting ranked choice voting for most of the last several decades. I don't know why he thinks another organization promoting the same type of causes as Fair Vote is needed, or why this is an independent effort. It seems like it's more to give him and some people close to him. His wife is involved. She's on the advisory board, and I think his son is involved as well. Anyway, it seems to be a forum for him to seek speaking engagements and put on conferences and writing and him and other people to advance the cause that Fair Vote has been working for. But a little confusing why they think yet another party, another organization in this field is needed. So a proliferation of alternative parties lately, as well as a proliferation of organizations to reform the way we elect people. There's something stewing here, and I'm going to continue to cover it over at least the next year and into the following year with the elections, seeing what's going on. Also been covering Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his former vice presidential running mate, Nicole Shanahan, off episodes. I go back and forth between alternative parties and RFK. And I have launched a new YouTube channel called Buddha Meets Jesus, talking about my spiritual views. I just put up the first inaugural episode. It's about whether Buddhism and Christianity are compatible. And I also go into some of my own spiritual journey and how it intersects with my political work. So if you're interested in that, look for that. It's one of the channels I think I have listed as I subscribe to as Political Dharma, so you should be able to find it that way, I think. If not, look, I'm not sure how you find it. Maybe look for Alan Zundel in the YouTube search bar, because it doesn't seem to bring up Buddha Meets Jesus yet, because I only got a few subscribers. So if you or other people you know are interested in religion and spirituality, well, that's a channel that I'm launching, and I'd love to have you join me and comment on what I have to say. That's it for this episode. Always appreciate your comments and like and share and the rest. And we'll see you next time around with some news about Kennedy. And then I'll be doing yet another episode of Buddha Meets Dharma. Buddha, get my own channels mixed up. Buddha Meets Jesus. Okay, thanks a lot and goodbye.